The Dino Who Wanted to Fly. In a lush and sprawling valley bordered by ancient cliffs, where streams sparkled like diamonds under the warm sun, and the air was filled with the chirping of distant birds, there lived a young oviraptor named Pip. Oviraptors were small dinosaurs with slender bodies, fast legs, and beak-like mouths that were perfect for cracking open eggs and seeds. They weren't the strongest or the biggest in the valley, but they were clever and quick. Pip, however, didn't think much about running or cracking eggs. His heart and his imagination were set on one thing: flying. Every morning, Pip would wake up in the family nest nestled under a giant fern. Before his brothers and sisters had even opened their sleepy eyes, Pip would rush out, gazing at the sky. There, high above, pteranodons soared gracefully. Their long, leathery wings stretched wide as they glided on warm currents of air, dipping and rising with ease. The birds, too, zipped and twirled, chirping their joyful songs. "I want to do that," Pip said one morning, his eyes sparkling with wonder. "Do what?" his older brother, Riff, asked, crunching noisily on a beetle he'd found. "Fly," Pip said dreamily, spreading his small arms wide like wings. "I want to soar through the sky, just like the pteranodons." Riff snorted so hard that he almost dropped his beetle. "Fly? You? Pip, you don't even have wings. Oviraptors don't fly. We run, fast." "But what if I could find a way?" Pip said, undeterred. "There's got to be something I can do." His siblings laughed, and even his mother smiled kindly. "Pip," she said, nudging him with her snout, "it's okay to dream, but it's also important to remember who you are. Flying isn't for dinosaurs like us, but you are fast and smart, and that's what makes you special." Pip nodded, but his heart wasn't convinced. The idea of soaring through the clouds, feeling the wind rush past his face, and looking down at the world from above was too enticing to let go. That day, Pip decided he wouldn't let anyone's doubt stop him. He would find a way to fly, no matter what. He started by observing the flying creatures in the valley. From sunrise to sunset, he watched how they moved, how they spread their wings, and how they leapt into the air. The first thing Pip noticed was that flying creatures seemed to use their wings to catch the wind. "Wings," Pip muttered to himself, pacing back and forth. "That's the key. I need wings." He began experimenting with anything he could find in the valley. First, he tied giant fern leaves to his arms using vines. The leaves were wide and flat, and Pip was sure they would help him catch the wind. Climbing to the top of a small hill, he spread his leafy wings and leapt into the air. For a moment, he felt a thrilling rush as the wind caught the leaves. But then, thud! He landed face first in the soft dirt. "Not enough lift," Pip mumbled, dusting himself off. "I need something stronger." Next, he found a collection of large feathers scattered near a bird's nest. Carefully, he tied the feathers to his arms, layering them to mimic the wings he'd seen on birds. This time, Pip climbed a higher hill. He stretched his feathered arms wide, took a deep breath, and jumped. For a fleeting second, he felt weightless, as though he was about to soar. But gravity pulled him down again, and Pip tumbled into a bush. "Ugh," he groaned, pulling twigs out of his feathers. The attempts continued for days, with Pip trying everything from tree bark to pieces of vines to create wings. Each time, he failed, but each time, he learned something new. One day, as Pip sat on a rock staring at the horizon, a shadow passed over him. He looked up to see an old pteranodon circling low, and then landing gracefully on a nearby boulder. The pteranodon's wings were tattered with age, and his movements were slower than the younger flyers, but his eyes sparkled with wisdom. "Why are you sitting here looking so glum, little one?" the pteranodon asked, his voice deep and kind. "I want to fly," Pip admitted. "But no matter how hard I try, I just can't seem to do it." The pteranodon tilted his head thoughtfully. "Why do you want to fly?" Pip blinked at the question. "Because it looks amazing. Because I want to see the world from up there, feel the wind, and be free like you. The old pteranodon smiled. Flying is wonderful, but it's not just about wings or wind. It's about understanding how to work with the world around you. What do you mean? Pip asked. You have the heart of a flyer, Pip, the pteranodon said. But maybe you're not meant to fly the way I do. Maybe your path to the sky is different. Pip frowned, not quite understanding, but he thanked the pteranodon and returned to his experiments, determined to find his own way. Weeks passed, and Pip's determination only grew stronger. One day, he stumbled upon a group of young pteranodons playing with a strange object. It was a giant, flat piece of bark that had broken off from a nearby tree. What are you doing? Pip asked. Sliding, one of the pteranodons said, pushing the bark down a hill and hopping on. The bark skidded down the slope, and the pteranodon lifted off into the air, using the momentum to glide. Pip's eyes widened. Momentum, that was the missing piece. If he couldn't flap his way into the air, maybe he could use speed to help him take off. Over the next few days, Pip worked tirelessly. He found a large piece of bark and shaped it into a flat board. He attached his feathered arm contraptions to it and carried the whole thing to the tallest hill in the valley. His siblings watched curiously. What's Pip doing now? Riff asked. Probably another one of his flying experiments, another sibling said, rolling her eyes. But Pip wasn't paying attention to them. He climbed to the top of the hill, set his board down, and stood on it. The wind whipped past his face, and he felt his heart pound with excitement. Here goes nothing, Pip shouted, pushing off. The board slid down the hill faster and faster. When it reached the bottom, Pip jumped, spreading his arms wide. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. The momentum from the slide carried him upward, and the wind caught the feathers on his arms. Pip soared, not as high as the pteranodons, but high enough to feel the rush of flight. I'm flying, Pip shouted, his voice ringing with pure joy. I'm flying. His siblings and other dinosaurs in the valley looked up in amazement. Pip looped and glided, his improvised wings keeping him afloat for a few precious moments before he landed softly on the grass. The valley erupted into cheers. From that day on, Pip became known as the Oviraptor, who found his own way to fly.